So I've been listening to a lot of Nightwish recently. I mostly listen to them when I go biking, which is pretty cool because now I associate certain areas of my town with certain Nightwish songs or albums. The funny thing is I've actually kind of known about Nightwish since like forever. In fact, in like 2005 or 6, they were like the first band that I ever heard. Like seriously, I might have like heard some video game soundtracks before that, but Nightwish Planet Hell was the first song that I ever actually like, oh, this is a real song from a real band. And like, I don't think at the time I fully appreciated everything that they had to offer. I didn't play Guitar Hero when I first heard them, but they definitely sounded more of like a band for a vocalist. But now I see like how freaking utterly stupid that is, and how there's actually a lot to be learned from a songwriting standpoint about what they do. So the band lead, the guy who writes the vast majority of the songs, who writes a lot of the lyrics and so on, is the keyboardist actually. Tuomas Holopainen is his name, at least that's what Google pronounces it as. And it's really fascinating because I haven't actually heard many bands where the keyboardist is like the main guy. So many of the bands I listen to, Children of Bodom, Omnium Gatherum, Parasite Inc., Metallica, their vocalists are either guitarists themselves, or the guitarist, if you look back at their discography, is one of the main guys doing a lot of the songwriting, and maybe even like in certain ownership positions, you know, maybe the guitarist's email is who to contact if you want to get a hold of the band at large. Omnium Gatherum was like that, at least they were. But Nightwish is led by a keyboardist. Interesting because it's unique. Because of that, a lot of their songs are written with keyboard lines front and center, symphonic lines front and center. That's not to say they're only using samples. They do hire session musicians, choir individuals for their stuff, but you can still hear the lead of the keyboardist in a lot of the songs. So their second album, Oceanborn, is probably the most guitar-centric album out of all of them. I was also interested too because there was a lot of classical elements in their stuff as well, not just in terms of using strings, but in terms of some of the scales that are being used. It had a lot of classical theming in the song arrangements. This album, along with some of the songs off of Wishmaster, use a lot of palm-muted 16th notes. You know, that stuff. It is quite different than some of their other stuff. There is some real energy to the songs in a sort of traditional metal kind of sense. The guitar plays more of a role in Oceanborn and arguably in Wishmaster than compared at the very least to Century Child and Once. I also find the songwriting structure to be very beefy yet lean at the same time. There's a lot of busyness in the best possible way. There are in-depth, complicated lead lines. There are variations of those lead lines. Those lead lines are then repeated by different instruments. There's this very interesting marriage between metal and classical sounding stuff in terms of the orchestration, where you kind of have both of these identities, metal and classical, or orchestral maybe I should say, sitting together, gelling very well together, but both of them I feel are taken to the furthest logical place they could go for in the song. In some of their later work with Tarja, there's a little bit more of a focus on the subdued, so to speak, letting certain riffs and passages kind of set in before yanking a listener to another place, like in Oceanborn. I personally like that. I like to constantly be like, whoa, you know, what's happening here and there and stuff like that. But I feel it was a songwriting shift. Now, I've been saying Wishmaster has a lot of elements like Oceanborn, so I want to talk about that one right now. Wishmaster is my favorite Nightwish album. Probably going to stay that way even as I continue to listen to their discography. So the song She Is My Sin, first song on the album, it actually hints at what I feel Nightwish more so became in their later Tarja albums. The guitars do step back at certain points. The drums aren't totally all over the place and crazy. The vocals are front and center, but I feel there's just enough emphasis, probably because of the catchy lead rhythmic lick, that still makes it feel like it's very much kind of a guitarist song as well. You know, myself as a guitarist, something kind of made for me, so to speak. I feel like the guitars step back as much as possible and let the vocals be front and center without the guitars almost feeling hidden to the point that you aren't paying attention to them. The guitars are just there to a point before that, but they are hanging back more so than in other songs. A lot of songs off of Wishmaster are really cool. I just want to talk about a couple more standout ones that at least jump out to me. Kinslayer is about an American tragedy at a school in the 90s, so super heavy lyrical content. The vocals in this song are percussive, which is really cool given the fact that Tarja is a soprano singer. Arguably one of the darker Nightwish songs. To me, honestly, like the guitars are definitely there. They're not hanging bringing back as much as some of their other stuff, but the vocals and the almost ghostly nature of them is really what stand out to me in the song. Between this song and Wishmaster in the album, there's honestly a lot of like cool songs that I probably like more, even though I don't have them on my playlist, than other songs that I don't have on my playlist off of other Nightwish albums. But the next song, of course, that stuck out to me is the title track, Wishmaster. First of all, songwriting. This song, I feel, is the perfect example of the guitars and the keyboards coming together. They both are extremely prominent. They both have extremely cool lines. So I feel that was handled exceptionally well. It's not easy to always make those two things stand out together. The vocals, again, are very awesome, but I really feel like the instrumentals as a package kind of sell the song to the same degree as the vocals do, which again kind of go back to that thing where I feel in some Nightwish songs it's all about keyboards and the vocals. This is a song where it really is everything coming together in the instruments. The next song I wanted to talk about was Crownless, and oh man, I freaking love this song. I feel that this song is Nightwish just barely dipping their toes into melodic death metal, and I'll say what I mean by that. During the song, the majority of the time, the drum's snare is hitting on the end, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and generally speaking, the kick is hitting on the on beats. Kick on 1, kick on 2, so on like that. Not all the time, but generally speaking, that's the pattern. It's a rhythm that sounds very punk rock in some kind of ways, whatever you might want to say. It also is a rhythm that is routinely used in melodic death metal. Bands like Kalma, bands like Parasite Inc., bands like Omnium Gatherum, certain songs from them, Children of Bodom. I'm not saying that that drum pattern was invented by melodic death metal or anything. I honestly don't know where it first started. I associate that kick on end, so to speak, as being a hardcore melodic death metal staple. And this Nightwish song has that, so I feel like it kind of brings that in. The guitar and keyboard line, the main one, is just, it's so cool. It's so freaking cool. Like, it's perfect, man. So the way that the song starts is pretty optimal. You come in with nothing but a guitar, and I believe a keyboard is there too. It is in other parts of the song at the very least, matching what the guitar is doing, and there's nothing else going on. Great way to introduce your main line, your main lick, and to give the song a lot of power starting off. And again, typically the keyboard is following that lead the whole time, using like a harpsichord sample or something akin to that. Not too dissimilar to what Children of Bodom has done in their solos, when the keyboard is basically matching what the lead guitar is doing. The main lick continues, and the rhythm guitars, the bass, and a choir comes in. Very, very traditional metal in that sense. Have a cool lick, have the bass and guitars play a held note to kind of give some punch while the lick is still going, and so on. Then the verse kicks off. The drums are doing the cool punk rhythm, which is sick, and Tarja, as typical, sounds great. But where I think this song really excels, generally speaking, is the chorus. So the chorus has essentially 3 lead lines going on, if you want to classify it that way. First of all, we'll start with what you'd least expect, which is the rhythm of the chorus. The rhythm, from what I can tell on the chorus, changes from doing 16th note palm muted stuff, kind of a little thrashy sounding, to held note chords, to elongated whole note type chords, and kind of goes back and forth between that. There might be instances where there's palm muted 8th notes, but of course the thing that really sells the chorus is the lead lines. There's basically 3 lead lines going on, but 2 of them are doing the same thing. There's a keyboard line kind of sequence going on, not exactly in the background, like it's quite prominent. Then there's Tarja's lead line, and along with that, there is a guitar, kind of, you know, higher registers lead guitar, kind of, you know, above middle C, and it's following Tarja's voice, which again, going back to the melodic death metal thing, is very common. Now, in melodic death metal, typically it's like almost all screaming. So when this happens, usually it's a lead line with screams going underneath it, but all the same, in lots of melodic death metal, you'll have a screamed chorus line with a sort of lead guitar part, not always perfectly following what the screamer vocalist is doing, kind of adding melody to that, because you don't have much melody when you're screaming. It's more of like a pitch thing. It's not melody in the traditional sense. So even though Tarja is singing here, you have the guitar following her anyways, which I consider that a melodic death metal element, which is pretty cool. So the next really interesting part of the song is essentially just the chorus again, but in the final part of the chorus. I feel like the final part of this chorus perfectly demonstrates how to repeat passages in a song a lot without it getting old. Like, it's freaking perfect. So essentially what happens is there is a sort of trade-off between drum lines and the keyboards being there. I'm going to call like all the chorus repeats just the last chorus for the purposes of this. So when the last chorus starts, the drum line is doing the snare on end, like it has been throughout the vast majority of the song. You have Tarja's vocals and the guitar following behind her, kind of more in the background. Tarja's vocals and the keyboards are the most prominent part. But around the 3rd or 4th repeat, the keyboards actually are gone. At least the sequenced kind of arpeggio arpeggiation bit of the keyboards, it changes the entire feeling of the chorus. This is a very interesting example of actually making a song feel different by removing something. And it feels freaking different because in the mix, what you do when you take away a lead element like that, you can boost another lead element. In this case, to my ears anyways, the guitar becomes significantly more prominent once those keyboards drop out. So you have this beautiful duet between Tarja's vocals, obviously, and the guitars going. The guitar tone is like really good here too. I'm not entirely sure what makes it different. Maybe I'm just hearing it more because the keyboards drop out, but it's a real nice blending of angelic vocals and arguably a really nice and beautiful distorted guitar tone. So the keyboards cut out, it repeats like, I don't know, once or twice or something, depending on your definition of repeats. And then for like 2 measures, the drums kind of chill out before they start up again with the snare on 1. Different than it was before where the snare was on the off notes or on the end notes. I think the better term is off notes, but whatever. The drums basically changed significantly. I never noticed that when I first started listening to this song, but regardless of whether you notice technically what's happening, it changes the entire feel of the song. This is how you repeat a passage of a song multiple times without it getting old. First of all, you have a freaking sick passage to begin with, which is what the chorus of Crownless is. And then you can add something if you have room for it. Arguably, there wasn't really any room to add something. There was already a lot of vocals, guitars following those vocals, obviously the rhythm guitars, and a keyboard doing arpeggiations. But what can you do? You can actually take something away. And when you take away the keyboards, you're taking it away from the standpoint of like, yeah, there's literally less notes now that you're hearing, but you basically are given more guitar because literally in the mix, I'm guessing what happened there was it was boosted, taking away an instrument technically, but you're still changing everything and still kind of putting back, filling that blank space in with more guitars. So you change your melodic instruments. What do you do then? You change your percussion. You do this and it'll allow you to repeat a part multiple times without it sounding old. Another tried and true method of keeping something fresh, even though you repeat it a lot of times, is changing the key, typically by a major second. But this I feel is like arguably a little bit better because like, I think this would have sounded really cool if they changed the key. I don't think there's much you could have done to make it not sound cool, but I really like this all the same too. An arguably more unique example to make something sound fresh, take something away. Taking something away actually can make it sound fresh. So those are actually my favorite songs off of Wishmaster by Nightwish. The next album in their discography is Century Child. I actually got this album in like 2006, like 4 or so years after it came out. I heard End of All Hope. This is super cool. This was the second song I heard from Nightwish after Planet Hell. It does kind of show you a little bit what you're in for. At this point in time, after Oceanborn and Wishmaster, kind of gets into what I was talking about before about Nightwish letting the guitars step back some and letting more of the vocals fill space. Not so much that there's like more vocals per se than before. End of All Hope is still really cool just because everything still comes together. So apparently the next 2 songs near the end of the album are actually not even on the original album. They're like reissue bonus tracks or something like that. But the next 2 songs in the order that they are anyways on Spotify when I listen to them were Lagoon and Wayfarer. Lagoon, I don't think I've ever heard a song like it before. It's really interesting because the song is like almost an instrumental, which is weird because the chorus is full of vocals. There's like almost no lyrics in it. What Tarja is doing the vast majority of the time, oohs and ahs and ohs and stuff like that. And dude, I'm totally fine with that. This song might be the most beautiful use of female vocals I've ever heard. The song is called Lagoon and the song freaking sounds like it, man. I can so clearly imagine calm water. You're just on it and you're at total peace. And the instrumentals and the vocals lend, like they absolutely nail that. This song is unique because it takes vocals and it literally makes them an instrument like the other instruments, like a bass guitar, like a rhythm guitar, something that flows, which again is the perfect kind of feeling for a song called Lagoon. The Wayfarer was the last song, like unique song, and I really like this one. I feel like it's one of the most energized songs on the album, if not the most energized song, and the guitars and keyboards together are doing more. It feels a little bit more like a subdued Wishmaster song. As with a lot of Nightwish songs, the main selling point is the chorus, and it's a very maybe like prototypical Nightwish sounding chorus, but like to me a prototypical Nightwish chorus is really good. So it's super cool. There's a key change near the end of the song with the chorus, but it's an interesting example of how when you do a key change, sometimes depending on what notes you're hitting, like the second you do it, it can almost sound like you've transposed transposed everything to a major key opposed to whatever it was before you hear the other notes of the new key setting in, telling you that no, this is just a key change going up. We're not totally changing the mode of the song. The next album was Once, and this is Tarja's last album, and this is at the moment essentially where I've gotten to in my listening of them. So Dark Chest of Wonders is like, it's like perfect, man. The lead up to, I'm gonna call it the main riff, the absolutely bombastic guitar and string section is perfect. The lead up, it has some variation, but it's overall, I don't want to say it's boring, but it's extremely stripped back for a purpose. So when that main riff hits you, it hits you with freaking a vengeance, man. And then the absolute genius decision, as soon as the main bombastic riff does its thing, having two ahs and then resting, totally brilliant. Throughout the rest of the song, at the beginning of every verse, it's three ahs, nah, and then it repeats it again moments later. To have only two ahs right after the main riff, it throws you so off guard in the best possible way. You know, you're like, what's happening here? You don't know what to expect. It surprises you in a good way and in a very unique way. It's absolutely optimal. It's not like one instrument, even the vocals there, are doing anything super insane or whatever. It's the conglomeration of everything working together to give you a truly memorable intro leading into the verse. What I wanted to say about the chorus, I expected it to go somewhere, then it went somewhere else around the time she says the lyric S-E-A, but then she kind of goes back to where I was expecting, but again, in a way that I really like. The movements I really like, and just the sort of general overall vocal crescendo at the end of every chorus. I mean, it's what I freaking live for, man. Like, I love that kind of stuff. Typically, I hear that stuff done with like the guitar being more of the focus, but here it's done with a vocal and it's freaking sick. The next one that stuck out to me was Dead Gardens. This song, I really like the chorus in. Again, a kind of another prototypical cool Nightwish chorus. What's interesting from a songwriting perspective here is that they do the chorus once, kind of where you'd expect it to be. Then right when they would get to the chorus the second time after the second verse, they go into the interlude. And then when they bring the chorus back for what is really the second time near the end of the song, I don't know what exactly it is, but the rhythm guitars and maybe the keyboards are doing something to make it sound really distinct from the first time. I'm thinking this is more of a mixing thing, probably some stuff in the arrangement going on there too to make it sound that way. I actually really like how the chorus sounds the first time though. It actually gives me a little bit of a Lagoon feel to it. There is a smooth flow to it that to me is a little bit of a prototypical like awesome Nightwish sound. Like it's kind of their sound when I think of their stuff that I really like. It's that. I feel like that is substituted for something else the second time around, so that's kind of interesting. The next and last song that I'm gonna talk about is Ghost Love Score. Damn, dude. So this song, I get so fucking into it, man. Like, seriously. The choruses are absolutely perfect. The chanted lines along with the long whole note vocals are just, it's probably some of the best vocals that I ever heard. It's perfect. Perfect. You can hear how much freaking training Tarja has, and you can in all of her songs, but like, my gosh, it's just incredible. Then there is the extremely long interlude bridge instrumental section. I just love all of it. Like there's no part of the song aside from the verses that drag for me, and that huge long instrumental, how it fades back into the first thing you hear in the song. The ahs, how the freaking palm muted guitar and drums accentuate that. It's absolute brilliant. And then they give you the chorus again. Like, that's an example where like, I don't think anything changes in that chorus at all the vast majority of the time because there's so much other stuff happening, which is like a good thing to know. When you have so much stuff happening, you don't need to really change much in your chorus if you have a ton of things going on outside of it, you know? At the moment, that's like roughly as far as I've gotten. I think for songwriters, some of the important things that can be learned from Nightwish are really things that are arguably like contradictory at first. It's very possible to have dense and layered metal music with a lot of dense and layered symphonic music. Looking at Oceanborn and Wishmaster for examples, especially some stuff off of Oceanborn, they have some really intricate, again, classical sounding stuff in there. Harpsichord stuff and guitar stuff, as well as a whole lot of strings. Should you want a sound where the vocals more so are center stage and the instruments are in the background, Nightwish also has has songs that show that as well. If you want a style of music where the instruments aren't necessarily supplementary, but more subdued compared to perhaps the vocals, Nightwish also has stuff like that. A lot of stuff off Century Child and a lot of stuff off Once. That is my overview of Nightwish, the Tarja year. If you could like and comment and subscribe and all that good stuff, I'd appreciate that. But particularly, I'll see you right here on The Spike Signal. Thank ya.